And with the pump fake and one dribble inside to the long two, and he makes it. That's been his game his whole career. But look at him smiling. We go, my bad. The long two.
Welcome to another episode of The Long Two. I am Pete Rogers. He is Natty Wallach, and we are the least efficient fantasy basketball podcast you'll ever hear, but we get the job done. Oh, Natty, how you doing?
I'm all right, dude. How are you, man? What's up?
I'm good. We've got snow here in Ann Arbor. We got a nice dusting. But more so than that, it's just been, it's been a long week already, and it's only Tuesday/Wednesday when people are listening to this.
Shit, man, and like Monday was a holiday. Man, what's happening?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Something about the sun going down early, and then you get tired. That whole thing.
I getcha. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a crazy world we live in.
Just embrace the darkness, man.
Just got to accept it and steer into it.
Revel in the dark.
Now the fact that the seemingly Gordon Hayward signed his contract with the Celtics on some sort of like cursed land, and he can't stay healthy for them, I have fully accepted the dark. So that's okay. I was born in it along with my buddy Bane.
It is a real shame because I wouldn't really say that he's injury prone because both of them were sort of freak accidents.
But it has been it seemingly has been regular since coming to Boston.
Well, yeah. I mean, don't trade Isaiah Thomas, man. What can I tell you? I'm really sorry.
That is a level of karma that I accept. I accept that level of karma because we did Isaiah Thomas dirty. And if this is the fantasy basketball gods or just the general basketball gods getting back at us for that, I am happily I will take this without complaint because we deserve it, because that was a absolutely shitty thing to do, especially since ultimately Kyrie Irving didn't really work out for us. So,
but dude, I sort of feel like this Hayward injury is again going to kind of improve the team in a way. Yeah. I mean, I think Marcus Smart's defense in the starting lineup is really, I mean, you guys are already a great defense. I don't know. I mean, I kind of like the Celtics a lot. I think Smart and Kemba together are a really good tandem.
Yeah. No, they're looking good. And you actually wrote about Marcus Smart on faketeams.com. So make sure you go check that out, telling everyone that he is a must-add in fantasy. And that's what we're going to talk about today on this week's podcast. We're going to talk about, and it might be too early to call them league winners, but we're going to talk about league winners who are likely available on your waiver wire and are guys who you need to go get. It is probably early to call them that, but it makes it sexy. Gives it a little oomph. It gets the people going. No one wants to listen to some guys who could help your team. They want to listen to guys who will win you your league and be vital parts of your fantasy basketball team that will take you to a championship. So, Natty, why don't you start us off and give us a guy who, if you add them to your fantasy basketball team, you, Natty Wallach, promise that they will win their league because of this player. We don't fuck around on this podcast. We go big as we sit at home.
Yeah, I think you should pick up Giannis. If he's available, he's pretty good.
I hear he's good.
Yeah. My guy is currently top 30 on ESPN Basic. He's 46.5% owned. He is Luke Kennard, who has looked absolutely spectacular for the Pistons so far this season. He doesn't look good tonight, however.
So ignore the game.
Right. It's Jimmy Butler. I'm not going to read too much into that. He's not. Kennard isn't having a great game so far. Anyway, on the season, he's averaging 18 plus points per game, 4 rebounds per game, 4 plus assists per game, 2.9 3-pointers made per game. He is tied for 4th in total 3-pointers made in the league with Buddy Hield. Only 14 players are averaging 18, 4, and 4 with 2+ 3-pointers made. And out of those out of those 14 players, Luke Kennard has the third best 3-point percentage. He is looking fantastic as a shooter for the Pistons. This is what Detroit wanted when they drafted him. I don't think he's going to be a top 30 player for the year, mainly because Blake Griffin is coming back, but I do think he's a top 50 player. And he's the sort of guy who's, I mean, 18, 4, and 4, that's nice anyway.
Yeah.
And you combine that with the outside shooting and the good ratios, and there's no reason why he should be this low owned.
No, and the thing I love about him too is that he's shooting 13 attempts from the floor, 6.8 attempts from 3 so far this year, but also 4.2 attempts from the line, which isn't a lot, but I do like the fact that he's getting to the free throw line with at least he's getting there. I was going to say mild regularity, but 4 is maybe not mild regularity, but he's getting there. And so it's not, he's not just sitting around the perimeter shooting threes, which is great, but it's also really nice when you're able to get a guy who shoots threes with a consistent rate, 42% from downtown, like you said, but also occasionally will get into the paint, will drive, and can get you, free buckets from the charity stripe.
89% on the year from the stripe. So,
Yeah.
He's shooting 45% from the field, 42% from 3, 89% from the line. That's pretty fucking nice for your ratios. If he can keep up this kind of efficiency, like if Blake coming get back actually increases,
That would be saucy.
yeah, I mean, Kennard, I don't know what his spot will be on the team. He might go back to the bench, but I mean, I don't think that's really going to happen. He just looks so great.
Right.
And this
I don't
is
know if you can
exactly
do
what we
that
want.
if you're the Pistons.
Yeah, I mean, our 3-point shooters come and go. And I think Blake's going to be minute capped for a while.
Mhm.
So whatever. Luke Kennard's going to get a lot of play. It doesn't even matter. He has as many 3-pointers made as Buddy Hield. Okay. Like that's what you should keep in mind.
That's all
what's
you need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a theme with a lot of these guys that we'll talk about is the fact that the reason why they're probably underowned is simply just because you feel like it's a risk rostering them. But I guess what I would say is because of the fact that it's fantasy basketball and your roster there's so much turnover already with your roster that like why would you wait on these guys while they're even if this is a hot streak or if just, like a good couple of weeks, capitalize on that, get them on your team, win a couple of games. And then when they peter off, or if the situation changes and they're no longer quite as valuable or quite as productive as they have been, then drop them or trade them. Like, you don't want to just be kind of like watching Luke Kennard tear it up on your waiver wire being like, I'll give it like 2 more games and see how he does. And then, you wait 3 weeks and you add him and then, Blake's in and the offense is different. Like capitalize on the moment, get him on your team and ride with him.
And context matters. This is one of the reasons why people have to look at minutes and they sort of have to consider what players' histories are. Like Luke Kennard was drafted to be a starting shooter.
Yeah.
And he's growing into that, and he's a really important piece for the Pistons. His defense is better. He looks a little bulked up. And so when you're trying to think about guys that you're not just going to stream, but that you're going to keep on your team, you want to look at minutes and you want to look, how old they are, how many shot attempts they're getting on their team, what they've been doing over the past couple of weeks. Because if you can see trend lines that last for at least a couple of weeks, you should ride those.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? Like people get minutes when they play well. You have to have a name in order to be cold and still play.
Yeah.
So young guys that get consistent minutes, you should pay a lot of attention to them because the coaches are playing them.
Exactly. And I'll perfectly transition that to another young guy who's getting plenty of minutes out in Orlando, 30.2 per game to be exact. And that's Jonathan Isaac. If you've been paying attention to basketball at all, which I assume you should be since you are listening to a fantasy basketball podcast.
Yeah.
You know that Jonathan Isaac has been balling out to start this year. He's currently 9th on ESPN's player rater. He's owned in 67% of ESPN leagues, so a little bit higher than maybe the kind of 50-ish percentage that we were shooting for here to give you a good chance of getting him. But if he's available, you 100% go get him because he is a league winner. And I don't want to just rattle off stats. So I'm just going to highlight two main ones because sometimes
like a fucking nerd, man.
like a nerd. Sometimes you get lost in the numbers and you're kind of just like, oh, okay, yeah, those all sound great, but what do they really mean? So I'm going to give you two main ones that you should be paying attention to and that you should love. One, he's shooting almost 50% from the floor on 9 attempts per game, which is going to go up, especially since Terrence Ross is shooting poorly and he's right above him in terms of the Magic's overall shot attempts. But the biggest thing, the reason why he's doing so well in fantasy and why he's shot to the top of ESPN's player rater, he's averaging a ridiculous 4.4 stocks per game. 1.4 steals and 3 blocks. That is a league winner right there in a statistical category that if you have the top guys, you're going to run away with your league and you're going to outperform everyone always.
He has the most total blocks in the league right now.
It's incredible. He's fully blossomed into this, like, and I think it's partially because they're playing him at the 3 now instead of the 4. He's just become that kind of super lengthy elite defender. I haven't watched many games, I will say, because they're the Magic and I only have so much time to watch basketball games.
What do you mean?
It's crazy, I know. But it reminds me a little bit of like just Durant's freakish length, and you're kind of like, oh, Durant is really good at defense and blocking shots. And I feel like Jonathan Isaac is kind of that way too.
He is definitely the best player on the Magic right now.
That's for sure.
Yeah. He's averaging 12 and 6, which, is nice anyway. And 37.8% from 3 on 3+ attempts per game. Out of all the dudes who are great at blocks, he absolutely has the best 3-point percentage. Kristaps Porzingis is just a few tenths of a point beneath him, but it's really those two as the shooters. And Karl Anthony Towns is up there too, but he has half as many blocks as the other.
And to emphasize, like, those two names you just said, you can't get off the waiver wire. Like, those are guys you're going to have to give up a fortune to if you want them on your team. And the clock is ticking with Jonathan Isaac. Like, I think of everyone who will probably be talking about on this podcast, he is someone who his ownership is going to start skyrocketing real quick. And so if he's available, you got to get him now before someone else in your league snags him.
Oh, the only reason he's not high around is because Magic.
Right.
Like, that's
exactly.
It's Orlando. Like,
right.
no one knows who
if he played a couple more nationally televised games, he would be owned in 80% of the leagues, no problem. And
I also think that, the Magic have been so shitty to watch. Like, their offense is so brutal. And, that doesn't sound great when we're talking about a guy to go pick up, but it's not Jonathan Isaac's fault. Yeah, they're still last in points per game. Sweet Jesus. They're worse than
Loudy.
My God, dude. But Jonathan Isaac, listen, Orlando doesn't get a lot of play and Orlando doesn't score a lot, but the best player on the team is Jonathan Isaac. The blocks, if you can keep that up, that's absolutely crazy. Their defense is good.
Right.
I do think, well, we can sort of talk about it later because he's my bud this week, but he and Aaron Gordon have yet to really figure out how to play well together. Aaron Gordon has looked a little bit better recently, but the Kings, they still don't really have a point guard. Like, is Markelle Fultz their point guard?
Yeah.
DJ Augustin is there, but Jesus Christ.
The Magic, you mean?
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just this. I really still don't. And Vucevic hasn't been doing well. I don't know. But Jonathan Isaac's great.
Jonathan Isaac is great. And
he should be owned more for sure.
I don't want to interrupt this regularly scheduled broadcast, but the Cleveland Cavaliers are currently up 97-96 on the Sixers with a minute left in the fourth.
Wow. Yes, they are. God, please. Dude, and it's in Philly. That's amazing.
Oh, 46 seconds left in the game, and they're down 1. Suck it, Philly. All right, Natty.
The Pistons are down by 22 points in the third quarter to the Heat. I don't know if anyone cares about that. Is that a lot? That feels like a lot.
Is that insurmountable? Would you describe that as insurmountable? I
No,
don't
it's
know.
not insurmountable. We've seen things like this before. It's fine. It's totally possible. But when we lose this game, and we are going to lose this game, we'll be 4-8, I think. And the only other team in the East with 8 losses is the Knicks. Not great.
Not not great. Uh,
Not
give us yours another player that you is a league winner or people should be going to get.
This dude is a league winner, and he should be on everybody's dynasty team. It is OG Anunoby. He is currently 49.2% owned. He's number 31 on the player rater. He does not have a sexy line. This is the problem. Like, he is totally solid across the board, and his ratios are fantastic, but he's only scoring 11 plus points per game with 5 plus boards, an assist, a steal, and a block per game. Only 13 players are doing that, by the way. And only 4 players are also shooting above 50% from the floor and 50% from 3. And OG Anunoby's one of them, along with Devin Booker, Miles Turner, Joe Harris. Like, 3 dudes. I mean, Miles Turner. Uh, but those are elite players. OG Anunoby doesn't have the point totals yet, but now that the Raptors have some injuries, maybe that'll start to climb up. He's young. He's a ferocious defender. He's absolutely perfect next to Siakam. I hope those guys play together for the next 10 years. And OG is a kind of guy who could end up in the top 30 at the end of the year, for sure.
Yeah, it's those percentages are incredible. Like, and I'm sure they might regress a little bit if he starts getting more attempts, both from the paint or from the floor and from 3. But it is amazing to me that someone who's averaging 55 field goal, 52 3-point is only averaging 11 points per game. And that just to me says, go get this guy because positive regression is coming. He's going to start scoring like a motherfucker.
Dude, he has a 66.9 true shooting percentage. Like, he's
Yeah.
good. And you will absolutely trade a little bit of negative ratio for more points. So, that's
Totally. Well,
fine.
even still, it's like a little bit of negative ratio. What? His 3-point percentage goes from 52 to 45?
Yeah.
That's still incredible.
Yeah, and he's still getting you a steal and a block per game, which is just great.
No, I love him. And again, I think in a similar way, but different way from the Magic, is I feel like the Raptors having won the championship and then having Kawhi leave, people have just kind of been like, okay, it's the Raptors. They don't deserve my attention that much anymore. And I feel like they've kind of been like, I guess you don't like Pascal Siakam, everyone's talking about, but that's kind of about it. And so I think there are like Van Fleet. All I can think of is Greta Van Fleet because that's the band. Freddie Van Fleet, is that his name?
Fred Van Vliet.
Fred Van Fleet. He's been having a great start to the year too, and I think he's injured now.
Well, okay, so the Raptors have a couple of injuries. I mean, the Raptors lost Kawhi, so they just won, and they still have a cool team, and Canada loves them. And this year was sort of a gimme year. Like, if they were going to be good, then I have no doubt that they would have made a trade to get better because holy shit, anything can happen, and maybe we can get to the finals again, especially if Siakam really rises to the occasion. And he has. The team just has good players who know what they're doing. And Nick Nurse is a pretty good coach, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
And he's unforgiving, like there are some young players on the team who he said during the preseason, like they're just not defending well. They just don't look good. And he doesn't need to give a shit, which is great. This team, Kyle Lowry being out sucks because Kyle Lowry is great, but Van Vliet was one of the best players on the Raptors towards the end of the postseason.
Yeah.
I mean, he sort of bailed the team out when Kawhi wasn't doing that well. And he's just fucking fantastic. Like, I kind of feel like they need to keep him on their team. OG's there, Pascal's there. Marc Gasol is still there, and even though he's not getting points, Like, he's still a really smart player, so he's not a great fantasy asset right now. But as the year goes along, maybe he'll get healthier and start playing more. They just have dudes that know what they're doing and are really good at defense. And now that they have some injuries, it's Pascal and OG's team.
Yeah. Well, and
Also,
since there's no more Kawhi, I mean, it was already
yeah,
Pascal's team, and OG is seemingly the next step. Yeah, Fred VanVleet is 28 in player rating right now.
yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah,
And
I like
two other
that.
players
I
you
like
should know
that.
about from that team are Norm Powell and Chris Boucher or Boucher, not sure. But both of these guys are getting more minutes because of the injuries to Serge Ibaka and Kyle Lowry. Norm Powell is a young wing who Toronto loves for some reason, and now we're seeing it. He's only 4.8% owned. He's had 14 plus points per game over the last 3 games. And Boucher has had 13 plus points per games over the last 2, and he's only 3.5% owned. He's going to soak up Serge Ibaka's minutes, and he was the G League MVP, I think. He's been 6th in total minutes for the Raptors over the last week, and Norm Powell has been 4th. So these guys are getting run while these injuries are affecting the roster, and they're still doing well.
Yeah, they're perfect. Those are perfect streaming options. OG, you should add permanently, but those two guys are perfect streaming options while injuries are still ravishing the Raptors.
I think OG is someone you should really try to trade for.
Yeah, we've
He
used that. What's his ownership percentage?
It is 49%,
Oh,
and
okay.
I
Well, then that's
think in 2 years it'll be in the 80s.
mm,
I just think his scoring's gonna go up,
yeah.
and his shot's gonna get better, and he's gonna continue being a terror on defense. He's great.
Yeah, I like him. I like it a lot. So one thing we always like to look for on this podcast is looking for good players on bad teams, and it's something that we have spent some time in earlier episodes. We were looking at and our skepticism around the Charlotte Hornets and exactly whether or not Terry Rozier was going to be that good player on a bad team. Well, it has been Terry Rozier, but we have gotten some good players on that bad Hornets team. PJ Washington has been looking real nice in
Oh,
his rookie
yeah.
year, but so has Devonte Graham, this is now his second year in the league. He's been fucking incredible for the Hornets
Yeah.
off the bench, averaging 17.9 points, 3.6 boards, 7.6 assists while shooting 7.3 threes per game. Blah, and hitting
7.3 threes per
7.3
game, my
threes and
man.
hitting
He's
42%
6'1",
of
by
them.
the way.
Love
Yeah.
those numbers. Pulling a you, Natty, while I was doing my notes for these, I got real excited with NBA's stats whole, shooting this many threes with this many assists. How many players are doing this? So if you look at only 5 players in the NBA are averaging 7 or more assists while shooting 7 or more threes. They
Love it.
are James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, Trae Young, and Devonte Graham.
That's amazing.
This guy's 56% owned in ESPN leagues. He might play himself into the starting lineup, which means you've got a young, talented guard on a team that's shooting to keep itself in games and playing 35 plus minutes a game. Yes, please.
7 assists and 7 3-point attempts.
It's insane. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Coming off the bench.
Dude, there's some players on this Hornets team that are pretty interesting, and none of them are named Terry Rozier.
Sorry,
A
Terry.
single goddamn one of them.
But not we called this. We called this during the offseason is that Terry Rozier was not going to be this sudden. He wasn't going to be playoff Terry all year long or scary Terry all year long.
Yeah, and let's not go crazy. I mean, this is 10 games in. So, Rozier's a good player. Devonte Graham is short. He's 6'1".
Yeah.
But I can't believe I'm saying short. He's, way taller than me. But anyway, some of the Charlotte Hornets might start regressing just because people have more film on them and they're preparing for them. This is a really young team, but I really love a bunch of these players, and Devonte Graham is one of them. He's so cool, man.
It's
He's silky
amazing.
smooth. It's great.
And again, God, another team that bad teams, you just kind of, they run by the wayside and you don't necessarily pay attention to them, especially me. I mean, I will admit, I am trying to become more and more and more involved in the NBA and have it be a part of my everyday life. But it's still football season, and football season still takes, as much as I don't want it to, takes a lot of time in my brain.
Sure.
And there's a lot of NBA going on. And so I only have the bandwidth for so many teams. And so when I was looking at Devonte Graham, when I was doing this and I was looking for players who you should be going to add, I was just like, holy fuck, this guy is lighting it up. And people aren't giving him the time of day. And so we are here to tell you, give him the time of day.
We should start identifying the worst game to watch of the week.
Ooh.
And then we both watch it, and it'll be like, oh, yeah, well, these are two shitty teams that we don't generally get to see. It's like, who's going to watch Hornets Magic? You know?
No one. But you know what you could just see? You could see Devonte Graham shoot 8 threes and Jonathan Isaac gets 7 blocks.
Right. And this is one of the reasons why Anunoby is so lowly owned. It's because, like, who watches the Raptors in the United States? Everybody watches the Raptors in Canada.
Look at you.
30 million people for sure. But, you know, like, they don't seem like they're appointment television. And the NBA, because they have so many games, they schedule all the good teams for national television.
Right.
You know, they can
Right.
choose, and they're like not that excited about putting the Charlotte Hornets on national TV. So that's maybe why you don't know who Devonte Graham is. Also, because he did come out of nowhere. You know, he was Kemba's backup last year, and he was supposed to be Terry Rozier's backup this year, but he took the job.
Amen. Quick scoring update. The 76ers managed to pull off the narrow victory, winning 98-97. God damn it.
That's brutal. Pistons got within 20, y'all. 94-74. Let's go.
Let's fucking
Luke Kennard
go.
just made a fucking 20-footer.
There it is. There it is. And now you need to go at him. Add him everywhere. Who's another guy that people could win their leagues with if they got him onto their fantasy team, Natty?
Okay, this guy, go blue, GR3, Glenn Robinson III. Over the past 2 weeks, he has been the 56th best player on ESPN Basic. He plays for the Golden State Warriors. You probably don't know who he is, which is totally fine. But he is second in minutes per game on Golden State since November 1st, which is behind D'Angelo Russell and then nobody else. While everybody is injured on this team, GR3 and DAR are going to be running the show. Like, there's nobody else. These are the two guys that are going to be on the court all the time. Glenn is averaging 10 plus points per game, 5 plus rebounds per game, 48.5 field goal percentage. And over the last 2 weeks, it's been 51. So he's been pretty good. He's been tied with Drew Holiday over the past couple of weeks in value. He's not a sexy dude, but he's a young player who's getting a bunch of minutes and a bunch of shots. And this is exactly who you're supposed to be looking for. Guys with opportunity. This is Glenn Robinson's year. I mean, it's his time to shine. If he can make a really good impression, then who knows what happens. I mean, maybe Golden State keeps him, or maybe they trade him to a contender. He can only improve his lot by playing well. So this is almost like a contract year for him. And everybody else on the Warriors is going to try to be doing the same thing. Eric Pascal, Jordan Poole. GR3 is a guy with nothing but opportunity, and he's basically free on the wire. So go get him. A top 75 player out of nowhere.
Yeah. No, I love the call. I mean, I love anyone on this Warriors team who you think will have a reliable role, simply because, like, I don't think that there are teams out there, right, that will just tank. That's an NBA thing. And more so the
NBA, though, it doesn't happen everywhere.
It's just only the NBA that it happens. Me Miami can't tank in the NFL. They've won 2 games in a row. No one knows how to tank outside of the NBA. But it's
great. All my Dolphins fans friends. That's really hard to say. are like, oh shit, but cool.
But cool, we're winning games, but also this means Tua is going to the Bengals. Awesome. Or the Bengals will draft a
But who knows,
offensive
man?
lineman.
Having the number one pick is sometimes just a headache that you like don't want.
Yeah.
Whatever.
No, that's unless I mean if there's like a clear-cut choice to make, then you're pretty fine. But sometimes like when Eric Fisher went as the number 1 overall to Kansas City because Kansas City's like, well, shit, we can't.
But if the
trade this
Dolphins are
pick.
really tanking and they got the number one pick, then shouldn't they fucking turn it into future picks? Like, why should they be good again?
Yeah.
Unless there's like an absolute cornerstone there. I can't fucking believe we're talking about the goddamn Dolphins.
They perpetrate. This is what happens when the Dolphins win games. You can't not
Jesus
talk about them. This is they need to get
Christ.
start losing games against
Red
them.
alert.
But
Miami
my point being is that I don't think a Steve Kerr led Warriors team is going to just ever give up or
Oh yeah, all these players are going to get better just
right
because they're getting reps. I mean,
right.
yeah.
And I trust Steve Kerr. Like sometimes on bad teams, you're just like, oh my God, this coaching staff is just going to lead these guys to fail. Like this is a championship like coaching staff, and they now have all these young players that they're going to give time to and like invest in because of the fact that with Steph out, Clay out, and Draymond battling injuries off and on. Like it's time to they as an organization are started being like, oh shit, we should probably figure out what our next steps are as a franchise and like who we need to keep, who are going to be cornerstones or who are going to be good young players that we can kind of start rebuilding around. And so they're not just going to be like, all right, guys, go out there and do your thing and we'll see what happens. This is going to be like, all right, we are going to start kind of crafting you and molding you into our team and our system. If you guys can succeed, great. If not, whatever. And we've seen multiple guys already succeed, Glenn Robinson, included. And he's got good numbers and his minutes and his usage is probably only going to increase with that. And you're going to get stats across the board for him. And I think, yeah, he's a great guy to get, invest in, and see what he can develop into.
And I think their defense is going to get better. Like a couple of years ago, do you remember when Steve Kerr like let Draymond coach? He was like giving him the clipboard during the game or something. Like this is Draymond's team for the next couple of months.
Yeah.
If Steph even comes back. And I have to assume that the defense is just going to be better because they'll be playing with him more. And he'll be able to teach them like what to do and where to go. So I wonder if this is not the low point for the Warriors and they'll actually start looking better. And then, you have to start thinking about trades. Like, is it really worth it to try to get to the playoffs? Would you rather have a pick? Would you rather try to get rid of D'Angelo Russell? I was wondering the other day, would you trade Russell for Wiggins?
Ooh. I mean, I kind of think
Wiggins
that the Timberwolves
fits
now
a little
say
bit
no to that.
better. Really?
Don't you think? Wiggins has been fucking incredible this season.
Oh yeah, but like, come on, get the fuck out of here.
What if? But that's the crazy
What
thing.
if he finally blossoms?
Right. That's the thing. I
Yeah.
mean, we like as a fantasy owner, you struggle with
Yuck.
this all the time with all kinds of players where you're like, do I cut him? Do I trade him? Like, what if he finally breaks out? And for the actual Timberwolves, like you have invested so much money, so much time into this player who is highly touted, one of the most highly touted prospects coming out of college in a long time. And like, what if he's finally things are clicking? And the thing is there's not things that are clicking so wildly for him. Like he's shooting obviously much better from the floor, but it's not like he's lights out from three. He's shot 33% from three last year too. He's just shooting more threes. And it seems like the game, I mean, his rebounds and assists are more or less the same. It's just that his scoring, he's shooting better from the floor. So I don't know.
Dude, he was getting the ball at the end of the games too.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if
he's 24 years old. It wouldn't be crazy to see a player at that age come into his own. Last year, I mean, Jimmy Butler being there, like obviously just didn't work out. So
clearly,
but it's not weird for highly touted and talented players to get better at some point. Like people like to say that improvement isn't linear, and that's totally true. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer for some. They're late bloomers. He's still really young. He's athletic. I don't really believe in him, mainly because if you're not giving like a lot of effort on defense, then that sort of sucks.
Yeah.
And if you're not getting better at defense, that sort of sucks. Like you should get better with from season to season just because of the reps. Like you should know where to be, like you should know how to react. Some of that is what Jimmy Butler was upset about. He was like, the young guys don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Right.
Like don't know where they're supposed to be. And they don't play hard on defense. And that's still sort of maybe there. I mean, I would rather have a great point guard with Towns than a great wing,
Sure.
I think.
Yeah.
Because Andrew Wiggins isn't, I mean, he's averaging 3.3 assists, but he's not really a distributor,
No. That's, I mean, yeah. And that's a good point. Like, and I'm now looking at Russell's stats, and they're pretty on par with what Wiggins is doing offensively. And so you're adding assists.
But it's a different position. Like,
Right.
this is.
Yeah.
And
I like
yeah.
that. It's a good trade, though. I like that as a proposed trade. But anyways,
it's like the value of having Wiggins in Golden State would just be like, okay, well, now we don't have another guard. Like, if everybody's healthy and they keep D'Angelo Russell, then Klay Thompson moves to the 3, I guess. So, like,
Yeah. No, I think D'Angelo Russell will probably get traded this year, but it'll be interesting to see who and for what, because I feel like some team on the precipice of contending is going to be willing to shell out picks or young players to get him onto their team because they think he's going to be the last piece.
He might be empty calories, though. Like, you got to watch out. Just because he got paid a lot doesn't mean that this guy is what people say he is.
Oh, yeah.
Like he played well in Brooklyn for sure, but this is, I mean, he's shooting in an incredible amount of shots right now because it's his team. The Golden State Warriors are his team until Draymond is healthy, so I guess he gets to do whatever he wants. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to spend too long on
Glenn
D'Angelo.
Robinson III. You should add on waivers.
Yeah,
Moral of the story.
We're spending so much time on the Warriors, even though like they're not good, and it's great. Like, it's really funny to talk about them this way, because it's like a chemistry experiment, and you get to see what's going on in the laboratory. But this is too long on a shitty team. This team, like, they suck right now.
Yeah. Okay. Before we go on and finish up our must-add waiver wire guys who will win you your league, let's take a quick ad break. Well, let's perfectly segue, since we spent part Warriors but also part Timberwolves. Talk about our collective boyfriend, man crush, one of our favorite fantasy basketball players out there, Robert Covington, forward for the Timberwolves, 56% owned in ESPN leagues. And I teased this to you off air.
You did.
So are you ready for this glorious Bob
I've been
stat?
waiting, man. Shit, yeah. Fuck the Warriors. Let's get to it.
Fuck the Warriors. Here's this glorious Bob stat you're going to love. He's currently averaging 2+ stocks and 6+ 3-point attempts per game. And I like looking at these two stats because it gets you a high point potential, because any given night, right, if he starts getting really hot from 3, he's going to be consistently shooting that shot. So, he can suddenly put up a high point total. And I obviously love, as a fact that we've made abundantly clear on this podcast, I love steady, reliable defense, and 2+ stocks per game. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Do you know how many other players are averaging this stat line? 2+ stocks and 3+ 3-point attempts per game.
I don't. How many?
There's only one player, and I will give you a hint. It is Bob's teammate.
Oh, it's Cat.
It's Cat. He's the only other player that's averaging this stat line. And the crazy thing about Covington is that his 3-point percentage is below his career average right now.
Totally. Yeah.
He's shooting 31% from 3, and his career average is 36, which, again, is good. Not great. Not going to blow the doors off. But like his point total could increase, and in fact probably will increase, because that's a solid 5-point difference from what his career average is.
Yeah.
I think he's a top 40 guy on ESPN right now. We both love Rob, and like these are the reasons why.
My man, he's 28 fucking years old. He is in his prime. This dude is I love so fuck Andrew Wiggins. I love Bob Covington with Big Cat. That is a
Yes, sir.
perfect dude to have with Carl Anthony Towns. They should grow old together, like they should always be together. Rocco, as he's called by some assholes, is just such an incredible defensive force. He's incredible. I mean, look at all the goddamn things he does on defense. It's oh man, he was such a terror in Philadelphia. I have no doubt that he will be a top 75 player at the least this year.
Yeah.
He's going to have minutes. He's going to have opportunities. His shot will improve, as you said. He's shooting, way under his career from outside. He might even get more shots. I mean, not that many dudes are putting up as many threes as he is. And 12-5 with a steal and a block per game is fucking nice anyway. So uh he should be higher owned. He should always be higher owned. We've been talking about this for like 4 years. I don't I think it's really his name, Robert Covington. Like that's a dude that you ask for financial advice. It's not a fucking awesome perimeter player who can win you leagues
Right.
just because of how fucking widespread his stat line can be.
And I think another thing that leads to his under-owning, underutilization, under-appreciation, he only played 35 games last year because he got injured.
Yeah.
But if you look at those numbers, he was averaging, again, 6.4 3-point attempts, averaging 37% from three. This was through 35 games, averaging 5.5 boards, 13.3 points, and again, fucking 2.1 steals and 1.3 blocks.
Yeah, his hands are crazy.
It's ridiculous.
Nuts.
It's ridiculous. And if you had seen that stat line through all 82 games, like he would be a much widely owned player. And even if those 35 games had come at the end of the year, I think he'd be more widely owned, right? It's the fact that he finished the year, that he spent the majority of the year out, is what people lead them to forget about him. Of all the people on this list, I've had him on my fantasy team now for a long, long time, ever since it came into fruition. And
Nice.
I'm a better man for it.
Yeah, he's a top 40 player who's not owned in at least 75% of leagues. So, you have a 20% cushion right there. I assume that people who own him love owning him, so it might be really tough to trade for.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but if he's just on your wire, then don't be an asshole. Pick up a dude who's good at all of it.
Good at literally everything and gets you literally everything.
His ratio should improve. Like there's nothing that says that they shouldn't. I mean, he's shooting underneath his worst shooting year ever. So like he's going to be last year he was 37.8% from three. He's 6 points worse than that right now.
That's positive regression. It's coming. Yeah. Before we get to studs, duds, and buds, I know you quickly wanted to touch on a couple names. Why don't you rattle them off quickly for people, as other names to keep in mind as you're looking at the waivers?
Well, in terms of all of the goddamn fucking injuries we've had to deal with recently, people should look at Bogdan Bogdanovic on the Sacramento Kings. He's currently 17.6% owned. Over the last 2 games, he's scored 22 points and had 6 3-pointers made, and 20 points with 5 3-pointers made. Now that De'Aaron Fox is injured, Bogdan Bogdanovic is going to soak up some of those minutes. Why? Because he is second in assists per game on the Kings. He's their best shooter now that Fox is gone. He's 5th in field goal attempts on the Kings. That'll go up. And I gotta say, I kind of like him, Buddy Hield, Bielitsa, and Barnes together on the floor at the same time. I'm interested to see what that will look like. I think he's in. I mean, who knows how long Fox will be out, but Bogdan Bogdanovic has been one of their best scorers anyway. Like people should pick him up because he could skyrocket in value. Also, Rajon Rondo is back. He is not sexy. This is known. And who has any idea what the fuck his role will be on this team for the Lakers? But last year he averaged 8+ assists per game, 4+ rebounds per game, and 1+ steal per game. Not terrible. Only 6 players are averaging 8+ assists per game this year, and less than 40 guys are averaging 5+ assists per game this year. So if you need assists and Rondo is back to a dude who plays like 25 minutes a game, he will get you assists and he'll get you a couple of boards from the point guard position too. You cannot depend on points. You can't really depend on anything. But if you need assists, he's a great specialist to pick up. And there were a couple of times where, he gets a triple double or near enough. So those are 2 names that people should think about for replacements for injured players.
Love it. And Rondo always will have a special place in my heart. Boston Celtics, my first Celtics jersey, whole 9
Great
yards.
player. Yeah,
Love
he's
him.
awesome.
And if there's one thing that Rajon Rondo will do, it is get assists. And he's going to get a lot of assists in this Lakers offense with LeBron and Anthony Davis running alongside him.
Yeah, I don't really know what this is going to look like because LeBron's been averaging 11+ assists per game. Like he's been the point guard.
Right.
I don't know if Rondo starts. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, the Lakers have looked pretty good. Maybe LeBron likes this. And maybe they bring Rondo back slowly. So the only reason that I'm advertising Rondo, even though I do think there's some uncertainty, is that he is such a good assist guy that the volume of it itself is worth having him on your roster.
Agreed. All right, let's get to studs, duds, and buds. And if you're new to the pod, we like to look ahead at the rest of the week. This comes out on Wednesday, so we'll talk Wednesday through Sunday at the end of each pod and give one guy who we're sure is in for a big rest of the week, one guy who's likely to flop.
Yep, totally.
100% sure. These are all correct.
Absolutely. Thanks, RJ.
And one guy who we have high hopes on, but could be a risky play. Natty is trying to crawl out of an 0-2 start that as he had RJ Barrett, who is not a stud, and Chris Middleton, who is not entirely a dud last week.
He got injured though. That's dud-ass.
Yours truly is starting 500 as Julius Randle was a stud, but Jokic decidedly was not a dud.
Dude, but he won like all the games. So, can we talk about that Denver game real quick? Because I watched that game and it was fucking crazy. They went 6+ minutes without scoring. The Nuggets did in the fourth quarter versus Minnesota. Like,
it's good. Those are good. That's a good thing to have happen to your basketball team.
That's absolutely nuts. They gave up a 16-point lead to Minnesota. Gary Harris fouled out, but like, I couldn't fucking believe that game. And then Jokic just had that turnaround jumper because he was tired and wanted to go home to win the game in overtime. But
I've got beer and weed waiting for me.
Dude, like I don't think he looks really out of shape, but he doesn't like look that interested and aggressive. He passed out of a bunch and like just pulled some jumpers. I don't know. That was a weird game.
I wonder if it's, and we don't need to spend time on this, but I wonder if it's just like early season and he, with the expectation of making a playoff run, he's just like, I'm not going to give a shit until, I don't know, 2020.
Dude, maybe he's just like really stressed out over Brexit. Like this shit real world blends into your game sometimes. And we're all upset.
Amen. All right, give us your stud for the week, for the rest of this week.
Okay. Without knowing, actually, can you do your stud first? Because I am curious to know. I don't want to take your stud.
No, I promise you won't, because I'm doubling down on my good advice. Is this is a player you should add, and also this is a player who will play well rest of the week. Devonte Graham is my stud for the rest of the week. Cool. Playing the Grizzlies, Pistons, and Knicks. The Grizzlies and Knicks are giving up 23+ points to point guards, and the Pistons, yikes, Natty.
Yeah.
Giving up a league
Bad.
worst 11.4 assists per game.
We're
So
bad.
Devonte Graham with his 7.3 assists per game is probably going to light them up. So I like him to continue his nice hot start for the rest of this week.
That's awesome. And by the way, it's 109-95 in the Pistons Heat game. Just, I know everyone doesn't
wants
have
to
the
hear this.
internet, so
Yep.
they have to hear it on this podcast.
Well, and this result, they won't know of this result until they listen to this podcast, whatever, 10 hours later after the game.
Exactly.
Over.
Yeah. I also am doubling down on my stud.
Nice.
Marcus fucking Smart is going to have a good fucking week, man.
Damn right he is.
He is playing the Wizards, the Warriors, and the Kings. Now, none of those teams are good, and none of those teams have a good defense. So I think Marcus Smart is just going to feast. I don't know if he'll have the points as much because I'm hoping that Tatum recovers from his last game, and that, the
shot for
Celtics,
whatever 1 for 8.
like maybe that was just an off night or something. But what I think Marcus Smart and Kemba Walker together is like maybe perfect. I really love them as a duo, and I think that Smart's just going to have a fucking great week.
Plus, this is very strategic of you because I actively won't root for you to lose this.
Yeah.
Meaning that I will be rooting for you to get into the win column. So that's a good move.
Well, and I thought that because that's such a shitty dude, the Wizards, the Warriors, and the Kings get the fuck out. Like they're not playing the Knicks, but like, damn. I thought you were going to take a Celtic, like maybe Kemba. He could have a really
could have a really good. Or how about Jalen getting a double last night?
Dude, but
Monday.
He still looks a little bit weird with his new haircut, and I'm really upset at
I
myself.
really don't like it. His head looks very weirdly proportioned with that.
I just think he needs to like trim his beard a little bit, and then it will look different and fit a little bit better.
But I did see
because he still has his old beard, but not his old hair.
Yeah, I did see this on Twitter though, that someone was saying that Jalen is like one of the only players to play better after getting paid. I was like, hey, you know what? Good for him.
Sometimes players really respond to that kind of belief. And they're like, yes, I'm going to earn my fucking paycheck. I just did this. And people think I'm overpaid anyway. And then some guys get their contract and, they take a year off. Yeah. So, but you can always trust a contract year. Players always play better in a contract year. Please, Drummond, keep going. Keep going. All right. Who's your dud for the week?
I guess I didn't learn from Jokic about why I should not pick European big men as my duds, but I'm doing it again. Kristaps Porzingis, coming off a bad game versus the Celtics and not the best week prior to that, has the Knicks and Raptors this week. Knicks are allowing the 5th fewest points to centers, and Raptors are holding them to under 42% shooting, which is best in the NBA. This is also the Porzingis return game to the Garden. And I think the Knicks kind of want to win it really badly. So they're just going to keep fouling Porzingis. And luckily they have like 15 power forwards for all of them to foul out. So they can just keep tossing them into the game and being like, go hack Porzingis, go hack Porzingis. So I don't see him having a great final 2 games for this week.
Do they want to win? The Knicks?
Don't you think so? Don't you think they want to be like, hey, not so much win, but prove that Porzingis is fine. Don't you think? Like if Porzingis goes into the Garden and puts up like 40, 20, and 5, like the Knicks are going to be like, well, fuck, this is just not going to play well with the New York crowd.
Right, if he's the best player that ever lived.
Right, exactly.
Right,
like totally. What they need to do is they're going to be
fans right now. They still believe in their team. They're like, no, we're pretty good. That Kristaps trade was a good idea. I'm glad that happened. Yeah. That fucking team sucks, man. The Knicks are going, like, Luka's just going to fucking twirl them around his little finger, and they're garbage. I mean, they're tied with the Bulls right now at the end of the 3rd. Big whoop. Chicago sucks too. I mean, oh my God. They're just, I don't really understand why they would come out and say, fuck David Fizdale, their coach. So the front office had a press conference basically after a game before anyone from the team had spoken, which almost never happens, saying like, we're really disappointed in the state of this team. Motherfucker, you built it. What is wrong with you? We are 10 games in and you're upset. Everybody else was upset over the summer when you signed and made this team. And now you're finally catching up to us. I can't believe the balls on these guys. It is really ridiculous. Like, what has Steve Mills done?
So
Anyway.
your dud for the week is the entire Knicks organization.
No, I obviously I'm sticking with RJ. I think they're going to have a great week. I think here's the thing though, like the Pistons are going to lose. So they'll be 4-8 and the Knicks are 2-8. The Knicks aren't technically really out of the playoff race or anything. Like they're just a couple of games back. That's all I'm saying, man. Dennis Smith Jr.'s coming back. You just wait. You just wait, Pete.
Brooklyn is living in New York, living in proximity to it is starting to seep into you, Natty. It's starting to pollute
I do want the Knicks to do well. That is my second, like after the Pistons doing well, I want the Knicks to do well. Because it's funny because no one will believe it. They'll be like, they'll celebrate it, but they'll be like, wait, why? What's happening?
What is this?
It's going to go wrong right now, right? No. And then, I want the Nets to do well too, but who knows what the fuck is going on with that team. But the Knicks are such a joke and their owner sucks so much that it's really hard to want them to win the title. But I would like to see them like make baby steps towards being a competent team.
Yeah, fair. That's fair. That's respectable. I respect that.
Also, I like a bunch of their players, but whatever. Yeah.
Who is your dud for the week?
So I'm going big time with this because I need to make up some ground. I'm saying Trae Young's going to have a bad week.
Hot diggity.
Yeah. So Trae Young's next 3 games at the Suns, at the Clippers, at the Lakers. That's a little tough. A little tough. He is going to be the center of attention. And while he's absolutely incredible, I do think that those teams are going to maybe beat the shit out of him. Like that's going to be their strategy. Like, hey, young guy from the East, welcome out West. And we're going to.
This is how we play in the West. I'm going to smack you in your nuts.
Yeah, exactly. Like Devin Booker doesn't give a shit about Trae Young. And both LA teams, that's fucking brutal.
That's a stretch.
Dude, and Paul George is going to be playing in those games too, I think.
Oh my God, I forgot we should have talked about. We probably should have opened the show with that. Yeah, Paul George is coming back on Thursday.
I mean, he's supposed to be coming back. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I could always use a little more PG in my life.
Oh, absolutely. And that team is going to turn into like their shot selection. Kirk Goldsberry sent out a tweet about Kawhi and Paul George's shot selection, and they complement each other so well. It is just, and they're 2 of the 5 best defenders in the league. Oh man, it's going to be incredible to watch that team.
And it's going to be like the Warriors in their prime, but like a different team construction. But just one of those things where it's just
centered
like
on defense.
Well, it's just beautiful to watch. It's going to be beautiful to watch basketball. Like it's just going to be wonderful to watch these great players play along each other and vibe with each other. Hopefully, if it all meshes, or you'll get what you get with the Rockets, and you're like, well, okay, this is a dumpster fire.
Just think about Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and Patrick Beverley all being out on the court at the exact same fucking time. Like, someone should call up Tony Allen and see if he's doing anything. That is so fucking cool.
Go get Iggy from Memphis.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Who knows where he wants it? I think the rumors say LA, but that could mean 2 teams, right? So
I get him on the good God. If Iggy joins the Clippers, hot diggity.
I mean, who knows? I like at that point, I think it's probably just like friends. Like, who would you rather be playing with? Because either of those 2 teams, the Lakers or the Clippers, could be in the Western Conference Finals the way they're playing right now. So we'll see. But to get back to Trae Young, he's great. This is just a really fucking rough road trip, and the rest of the team is sort of injured too, and they haven't looked great. So I think he is my dud for the week, which means that he'll probably score 40 points 3 times in a row.
Yeah. Yeah. But then he'll have one bad game and you'll try to pitch us that somehow that one bad game justifies.
Yeah, for sure.
For the week.
And like Marcus Smart will get 4 rebounds and 9 assists. And I'll be like, what are you talking about? That's a solid game. What's wrong with you?
Best game ever for Marcus. What are you talking about?
0 for 7 from 3, but come on, man. Jesus.
Quickly, let's do buds. Who do you got as a blossomer this week?
Okay, so my guy from last week, Lauri Markkanen, did okay. In his last game, though, he shot 3 for 10 and 0 for 5 from 3. So not
Good, not
optimal.
great.
My guy this week is Aaron Gordon on the Magic. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Their upcoming 3-game stretch is the Sixers, the Spurs, and the Wizards all at home. Aaron Gordon is shooting 27.8 from 3 this year. That's not great. He's also rebounding a little bit less than last year, 5.5 this year compared to 7.4 last year, and his assists are down. He's played a little bit better recently, but dude, it's your 6th year in the league. You're only 24. I mean, the Magic should make the playoffs, especially with the way Jonathan Isaac looks. I know the team is weird, but you got to fucking up your game. I really want him to do well over this next stretch, even though it's tough. But that's why I want him to do well. If you can play well against Philadelphia, you can play well against anyone.
Yeah, I like it. Hopefully it is coming out because we talked a lot about him as a potential like guy who could take a big step this year. And
he's 24 years old.
Yeah,
just
a big
like
week
Wiggins,
this week would do nice.
Totally. Who's yours? Who's your bud?
My bud. I want Colin Sexton to keep vibing this year.
Sure.
They just played the Sixers and he put up 18 against them. Not too bad, not too shabby, but he's got the Heat and then Sixers to end the week. Both of which the Sixers actually is a pretty favorable matchup for point guards. The Heat is not, but he's been averaging 18 points a game and shooting 42% from 3. So I love his offensive start. That's pretty much all he brings. He doesn't really add anything in the assist columns.
Dude, I kind of love how Cavs we've been the past couple of weeks.
I know, it's weird.
Kevin Love is good. Tristan Thompson's good. Larry Nance is good.
Tristan Thompson, who is drilling threes against the Sixers.
The only guy we won't talk about is Chidi Osman because fuck him. He's their only small forward. They don't have enough. Everybody check their depth chart. They don't have another guy who's a small forward. It's incredible.
It's beautiful. What great roster construction.
Yo, and John Beeline's their coach, and I love him. Go Blue. He's great. The team does look better.
They don't look.
That's an interesting team,
they
and
just
you know
took
what?
The Sixers and lost by 1,
dude. And I think they're in the playoffs right now. I think they're like the 7th seed in the East. No, they're not. But no, they were.
They could be.
Right. They're 4 and 6, so they're better than the Pistons.
There you go.
Which is where my cutoff line for the playoffs is. But yeah, the team looks. They have pieces. It's going to be up to the coach, Beeline, to have them cohere. And both of the guards need to do better distributing the ball. Darius Garland and Colin Sexton can score. We know that, and they can run. So over the next couple of years, we're going to have to see whether they can really run the show.
Yep. Cool beans. All right. Well, there you go. Studs, duds, buds, guys get off the waiver wire. Everything you possibly could need, all in one nice little package.
And we guaranteed it. So
if it
we
can't back
doesn't
out
happen, then you did it wrong. It's not us.
Not us. I guess somehow guaranteeing it takes the pressure off us to be right. That's how it works.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Make sure to subscribe to the Fake Teams podcast channel, wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher. Leave us a review. Give us 5 stars because you thoroughly enjoy the sound of our voices and you want to hear more fantasy basketball content. And follow us on Twitter at The Long 2 Podcast. We'd love to engage and interact with you guys. Until next week, Natty, have a good one.
You too. Also, Frank Ntilikina has been good over the past 2 games. I didn't want to say it, but I had to. I'm sorry. Frank Ntilikina, the French Resistance. Check him out.
Go Knicks!
Good week, man. Yeah. Ugh.